What is up, beautiful people of the internet? I am Wesley, and today, guys, we are going to answer the age-old question that's been burning inside you. I know. It's been burning inside me. I know. And we're going to do it with the help of the awesome content creator, TierZoo's. We are going to answer the burning question. Are hippos OP? We're going to find out with TierZoo's. I think that they are scary. I'm not going to lie. I just remember even back in Hungry Hippo days, those guys just... Their heads and mouths are so huge, and they're always depicted as so fluffy and cute, and like they look super soft. But every time I see their giant ass mouth, it just looks like they could fit my entire torso in their mouth and just like half me. That being said, guys, make sure you subscribe down below for more reactions and comment. Let me know what other videos you guys want to see me do reactions to. That being said, are hippos OP? Look at that giant ass head, damn!
This episode is sponsored by Dashlane.
Damn it, I was slow again.
Africa.
I can never hit it.
Hardcore server. On top of the potentially lethal heat and disease debuffs, many of the most powerful builds in the game are playable only on the Africa server. Everyone knows the big names. Elephants are the biggest, cheetahs are the fastest, cobras are the most venomous, etc. However, one of the builds that frequently gets overlooked is the hippopotamus.
See, they look so chill. We saw that lion get absolutely scruffed and tossed, right? Its whole head was in the hippo's mouth. But then we see them here, and they look so cuddly. Look at those eyes. They look like they don't have the care in the world. It's like your uncle in Cabo sipping a pina colada, laying on a floaty in the pool.
Even though none of their stats are the best in a single category,
those giant mouths,
things that they do better than anything else. So today I'm going to give an overview of the hippopotamus's stats and abilities, talk about its good and bad matchups, and where I'd rate it in the overall tier list. I've already done one video that sort of touches on all these things, but since it was one of the first videos I ever made, it's pretty lacking in quality. So hopefully this guide will do a better job doing the topic justice. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into it. Hippos are the premier tank build of the African aquatic meta. Their success comes from a combination of phenomenal stats and from speccing into abilities that allow for some pretty ingenious exploitation of the game's water physics, which I'll get into in a bit. But first, their stats. So you probably noticed that the hippo stats are, in a word, phenomenal. They have one of the highest HP levels of any land build, second only to the elephant. Normally, builds with one unusually high base stat tend to have major shortcomings in other areas, but the hippo simply doesn't. While it's
that doesn't seem fair. Where are the devs at? Why'd you just make this? You need to nerf the hippo then.
Intelligence is only average. All the rest of their stats far outclass most other African builds. They have great damage, high defense, and even have great stealth for a build in such a high weight class. But perhaps the most surprising is their mobility level, which relates to how their abilities let them engage in physics engine exploits like I mentioned earlier. So in addition to having relatively high run speed on land...
That's like the most scary, intimidating waddle I've ever seen. Look at this dude, it's just waddling up a storm. It's a waddle of death coming towards you.
In addition to having relatively high run speed on land, hippos are also unbelievably mobile in the water. Now, normally when designing your character to be fast in the water, you spec into traits like... water mobility. Things like a streamlined body, fins, flukes, webbed feet, all these things strictly buff water speed, and usually are the go-to for players trying to take their character to new depths in the aquatic meta.
Hey, I see what you did,
The hippo player base decided to do exactly none of that, instead dumping most of their evolution points into pure bulk and muscle. As a result, hippos are so dense that, unlike most animals, they do not float. This lets them be one of the only builds that can actually use the run movement option underwater with any success.
That's wild.
So yeah, hippos, despite not actually being able to swim, have one of the best aquatic movement options in...
Hippos can't swim? My mind is blown. I had no idea. They're literally just so tanky that they're waddling across the ocean floor, well, I guess the river floor. That's somehow more horrifying to me. I don't know why.
And they didn't even have to spend any evolution points on aquatic mobility to do so. So, hippos have 4 signature abilities, the first being their water dash ability that I just explained. Their second ability is their 2-inch thick skin. This ability is the reason behind their high defense level, and it grants them some of the best resistances in the game, particularly to the common threats in the African server. It grants them near total immunity to slash and bite type damage.
See, so 2 inches is massively significant. All my boys out there are like, yes! 2 inches is good. Yes!
Since claws and teeth simply are too short
Just tell
to pierce their
Stacy
skin,
about the hippo.
this lets them shrug off the vast majority of standard
Whoa.
attacks in the African meta.
That hippo's
and is also
going.
crucial for letting them survive attacks even from groups of enemies, which is normally the answer to defeating a high HP target. Defending from physical attacks is important, but it's just as critical to make sure your elemental resistances are adequate too. Because hippos have spec'd into the hairless trait in order to minimize mobility debuffs in the water, they're highly vulnerable to solar damage. In order to mitigate this issue, hippos have spec'd into sweat that grants them UV resistance and, as an added bonus, grants them resistance to infection.
I could
Another
use
hugely
that.
beneficial
I could use that. I get sunburned every other day. I think about the sun when I get sunburned. Can I get some of this sunscreen sweat?
trait to have when you spend most of your time in unclean water, potentially with open wounds.
Ugh.
The only downside is that while active, it gives the hippo players a reddish tint, temporarily lowering their stealth level. Their last special trait is their tusks.
Not that much of a
Hippos
trade-off.
haven't spec'd into carnivory or even omnivory. They're strictly herbivorous and can't gain any XP from meat. However, regardless of this fact, they have one of the most damaging bites in the game. On top of the sheer force of the bite itself, which is around a ton,
That's
by the way,
horrifying.
their tusks deal massive damage to anything they puncture. But on top of the hippo's damage potential, their tusks offer another important benefit: intimidation. So the most effective intimidation techniques are the ones that can be quickly switched on and off. A coral snake's colors are always bright, and a spider is always creepy, but hippos aren't always terrifying.
No, they're usually
In fact,
lovely and sweet looking, and their mouths scare me, I think, more than anything else in the whole game.
most of the time they appear non-threatening, yet in an instant they can crank up the intimidation to 100 just by opening their mouths. A hippo player
So
with
scary.
intimidation active is one of the most intimidating things in the entire game, easily being able to scare off even some of the bulkiest builds like rhinos.
That mouth. It
Okay,
opens so
for matchups,
wide.
hippos sport one of the most comfortable matchup spreads possible. Because they're highly resistant to bite and slash attacks, most of the relevant predator matchups, such as crocodiles, lions, hyenas, and painted dogs, are highly favorable for the hippo.
They're just chilling
On top
with that
of this,
crocodile?
The hippo's own attacks can one-shot any of those predators.
Huh.
As for bad matchups, any builds that focus on stab-type weaponry can definitely give a hippo a hard time. In particular, elephants and rhinos both
wow.
have long enough horns or
Damn, elephants are big. Damn, I don't know how. I've never appreciated just how enormous elephants are. Those hippos are gargantuan. That elephant is a colossus.
tusks to pierce the hippo's thick skin and deal critical damage
Yo!
to enough to challenge them.
Wow.
Fortunately, the rhino's low intelligence makes it highly susceptible to intimidate abilities, so that matchup is by no means unwinnable. Elephants, though, they'll walk straight through a group of hippo players, knowing none of them will challenge it. Also, ironically, one of the worst matchups for a hippo is another hippo.
Really?
Since a hippo's tusks do have the potential to pierce their defenses. The last important matchup to discuss for them is
That watching those hippos fight looks like that video of the Never Been Kissed special on TLC where the bride and the groom had never kissed each other, and then at the marriage ceremony they're like literally looked exactly like the hippo.
how they fare against humans. And in this regard, they've got one of the best records of all.
Really?
Obviously, they still lose to the highly advanced equipment that humans have recently unlocked. But aside from that, humans don't have any way to combat them.
Bye, Jack
As
Black.
a result, hippos have the highest KD ratio versus humans in the entire game.
Really?
Even special high-level mounts, like boats and trucks, can be taken down by a hippo. So where do hippos belong on the tier list?
S.
Well, considering how they're basically unstoppable tanks that manage to spec into an excellent semi-aquatic playstyle without sacrificing any land-based abilities to do so, it's tough to argue that they're anything but S tier. They
Obviously.
easily control any rivers or lakes that they're in, being even more dominant than crocodiles. In fact, while currently the vast majority of the hippo player base is in the African server, a few of them have recently broken into the South American meta. Now, hippos have one of the lower spawn rates in the game, so it'll be a while before we can really assess their viability in servers outside of Africa.
Can you eat hippos? They look like they're so chonky. Can you eat them? How come no one talks about eating them?
But I would bet that eventually hippos will be one of the most dominant builds in South America too.
Really?
Especially since they have great matchups against the top tiers there too, like the caiman and the jaguar. The piranha player base might give them a hard time though, so we'll have to wait and see. Their thick hide
Ooh, that's so much food for a piranha. All that belly. Would they be able to get through the skin? They have to be able to get through the skin.
offers a lot of protection, but with hundreds of bites chipping it away, even the hippo might struggle. Protecting your hit points is critical to survival in the current meta, But perhaps equally important is protecting your passwords. And that's where today's sponsor, Dashlane, comes in.
I was so confused how that was going to relate back to the hippos. That's so funny. Dude, TierZoo killed it again, guys. Hippos scare the crap out of me. They're so horrifying. They're just so scary. I feel like the fact that they look so cuddly and they're just absolute death machines makes them even more scary to me for some reason. Like, dude, have you ever seen a hippo skull? It looks like the biggest, scariest dinosaur you could ever imagine. And they just covered it with blubber, but that's also armor. That being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm Wesley. Make sure y'all comment down below. Let me know what other videos you want to see me do reactions to. And subscribe for more reactions. Y'all are amazing. Take care of yourself and have an absolutely beautiful day. I'm Wesley, and I'm out.